The United States is deeply confused about all of this. Where is the American century? It's supposed to last at least to 2041, if not 2141. And suddenly, it's not there. So we are in a highly neurotic state right now, very agitated. And it's hard to find someone to sit down and say, calm down, it's okay. No one's taking away your good life. China's not invading you. China's not a threat. It is very successful, but you should enjoy that success, not bemoan that success. And so the added factor that we're facing right now is a reaction, a very deep and very unsettling reaction to this loss of leadership in the U.S. I have to say that most of the conflicts that we're experiencing now, whether it is in the Middle East or whether it is in Ukraine or the tensions in East Asia, have the U.S. always as one of the causes of those conflicts. But most of the conflicts result actually in a deep way from the exaggerated U.S. perception of its ability to dictate terms to others around the world. And this is what the United States did not understand, that it could not simply tell Russia, we do as we want in Ukraine or in other neighbors of Russia, because Russia does not want the U.S. military bases on its borders any more than the United States would want Russian military bases in the Western Hemisphere. But the U.S. could not understand the reciprocity of that, or the golden rule dimension, do not do to others what you would not have done to you. And so we did not understand that. And many of the other crises have this characteristic. What's dramatic is how ineffective, unfortunately, the United States is at facing this right now. This is why we have this tariff eruption, which is a complete sideshow, not a real event. It's a sideshow because raising tariffs has nothing to do with what the United States needs. It's not a solution for anything. And that's why they lasted 2 days. And the stock market collapsed and the bond market collapsed. And somebody came in to explain to the president, you better stop that. And it lasted vis-a-vis China for about 8 weeks because China said, we will match what you're doing. And then the United States backed down from that as well. So that's an example of what I would call a completely dysfunctional reaction to a reality, which is that the United States cannot dominate events. Donald Trump thought that the U.S. market is so important, so dominant, that no country could do anything but bend its knee and bend to the U.S. will. And this is simply not correct. It's not a proper understanding. The U.S. market for imports is only about 13% of world imports now. So you could close off the U.S. market entirely, and the rest of the world would figure out how to get along pretty well indeed. And that was almost put to the test, but the U.S. backed down quite quickly, and I don't think that it will come back. I don't know how to put this politely, but the United States is having a nervous breakdown. So this is another element of what is happening. The U.S. was for decades the most powerful country in the world, the dominant economy, and the technological leader. 2 world wars brought that about rather spectacularly, because 2 world wars ended Europe's dominance, because these were wars that were essentially European civil wars in that part of the world, as destructive at industrial scale, as cruel, as horrific as ever could be imagined. Well, they're not very good economists in Washington, I have to tell you. They don't know how to look ahead. They don't understand the deeper trends. They never understood China, and they still don't understand China from then until today. There was no forward perception. China was a useful, rice-growing ally against the Soviet Union. That was China in the American imagination. or a nice place to produce toys for American children, as Donald Trump said a few days ago, that the trade war would mean that American kids would have a few less dolls than they might otherwise have. That was the perception. I know it. I know these people. Some of them are my students, and some have been my colleagues. A few have been my teachers. They never understood. The favorite article of the time was The Myth of the East Asian Miracle. When you are powerful, you want to believe that anyone else's success is a myth. And that was really the dominant meme in the United States in the 1990s and 2000s. I can tell you one quick story. I published a very good book that no one has ever heard of called Rising Asia for the Asian Development Bank. The worst timed publication I ever made because it came out in 1997. And it came out saying that Asia had a very bright future because economic convergence is very powerful. We made extrapolations to 2025 that were pretty much on track, by the way. And it came out a month before the Asian financial crisis. And so I think the Asian Development Bank felt that this was the worst thing they ever published. I think all copies were probably destroyed. But in any event, the mood was that Asia could never really catch up. This was bubble, an exaggeration, and so forth. But that book, quite accurately, said, look at the long-term deep trends, not at the short-term cyclical phenomena. And it didn't consider or study a short-term business cycle. It looked at a 25-year horizon, and it got the point right, which is that Asia would continue to have rapid growth. And I would say Asia outpaced what I predicted back in 1997, though it was a very optimistic and accurate assessment. What Asia, and especially China, did was close the innovation gap as well as the technology gap. So this is probably the most dramatic fact of all, which is that it's not only the cutting edge technologies that are being produced in East Asia, but the innovation now is surging in East Asia as well. China is about 30% larger than the United States today. And as I just said, the United States has a counterpart of 86% of the world. The United States is not only diminishing in its relative size and importance, but for the moment, it's abandoning international responsibility. The U.S. has announced that it's leaving the climate agreement, the Paris Agreement. The United States basically leaving many multilateral activities, also the World Health Organization and others, because the reaction to the loss of status is, I don't want to play with you if I'm not number one. I'll be number one some other way. Don't tell me what to do. And so the United States is in a psychological funk, as I explained. It doesn't want to play by the rules. It doesn't want to play by trade rules. It doesn't want to stop its emissions. It doesn't want to fund the UN and many, many other things. But the rest of the world has not changed course as a result of this. You do not have the rest of the world standing up and saying about Donald Trump, finally, that's what we wanted in leadership. It's not happening. What's happening is everybody's scrambling. What do we do? How should we act? And so forth, but not how do we follow the United States on the way out of all of these multilateral objectives. That has not happened. And that is that Asia has ended a long period of domination by Europe and by the United States of the world economy. And Asia has restored its place as the center of gravity of the world economy, the place that Asia has had for most of the last 2,000 years, actually, with the interruption of the period of the Industrial Revolution, which came first to Europe. It was the engine, if I could put it that way, of European imperialism, and roughly 250 years of European dominance, and that period is ending. And in fact, it is that rapid catching up of Asia and the geopolitical changes that are caused by that rapid catching up that give the sense of the profound disruption and uncertainty of our time. But because the underlying reason for this change is the rapid development of this part of the world, Northeast Asia, Southeast Asia, Western Asia, the countries that we'll be meeting in the coming week, even though this change is very disruptive, it is not a cause of panic, but rather, when one steps back, a cause for optimism. Because what has happened is that a world that was profoundly divided by power and technology is now truly a multipolar world in which the United States and Europe, no doubt, remain very sophisticated societies, very powerful societies, but no longer dominant societies of the world. We've entered the age truly of multipolarity. That's a big challenge, but it's also a wonderful fact and great opportunity, and has been in recent decades. We have, of course, had 40 years of remarkable growth of the People's Republic of China. We have rapid growth throughout most, though not all, of ASEAN. We now have India growing at 6 to 7% per year, the fastest growth rate, in fact, of a major economy in the world. That's a major change as well underway. And we see that kind of rapid economic development in other parts of Asia. I'll indicate in just a few minutes that I think the same will happen in Africa, which is by far the most laggard region of the world economy for many reasons of history and physical geography. But this will be an age in the next 40 years of rapid economic development in Africa as well. We are in what I call America's cultural revolution. That's not a good thing. Cultural revolutions do not go well. They set back China for 20 years, in effect, and the United States yesterday banished foreign students from Harvard University. That's not a joke. That's insane. It is self-destruction at a rate that is absolutely impossible to understand, other than in psychological terms. This is a backlash, a resentment, an aggression, an arrogance to destroy the core of your prosperity.